Awesome. We are live, Trade Pros. Welcome to another edition of our Futures Midday Update, Futures Afternoon Update, however you wish to call it. It is Thursday, May 2nd, 2019. This is Mark here, joining you guys from Trade Pro Academy headquarters in Toronto, Ontario. I am the lone wolf in the office today, but let's get at this. We had a great session in the room. Caught a lot of the oil, traded really well in the SPOs as well today. Kind of guided the room through the limited upside off the open bid, and ultimately we were looking for SPOs to come into that overnight high around those 32 quarters, and we saw that the lead-in trend was bearish, so we were looking for some downside, and we qualified that level right near the top, and here we are now trading about 30 points lower for the session. So great start to the day. We had a couple of squawks that came in, some headline wire tape or wire bombs, if you will, come in with regards to Iran and with regards to Twitter chatter about the potential of the US-China trade talk impasse. So a little bit of volatility on the back of those. Let's go through some of the news that we saw this morning, since George is a little bit under the weather, as is Victoria, so no YouTube update this morning. So I'll quickly cover what we saw in the morning update, in the morning, and then we will go into some of the squawks we heard. Then we'll pop it onto our pivot charts and our range bar chart, show you guys what we're seeing, and show you guys a couple of the plays we made in the room as well. So first things first, a couple of news coming out of the States this morning, 8:30 a.m. We had preliminary non-farm productivity quarter-over-quarter numbers. Big miss there, 3.6% versus 0.9%. We had U.S. preliminary unit labor cost quarter-over-quarter figure as well. Forecast was for 2.4%, came in at minus 0.9%. Miss on that end as well. Unemployment claims forecasted was 220,000, came in at 230,000 there. And then we also had U.S. factory orders, a month-over-month figure that came in at 10 a.m. That was really the only beat that we saw today. That was expected at 1%, came in at 1.9%. And then we had 10:30 a.m. We had the natural gas storage numbers. That was forecasted to come in at 107 billion. And that came in at 123 billion. So crude, not too much of a response on the back of that. But I think what the real drivers today were really, once we got into those overnight highs, we got a squawk came in at 11:30 that the market, or hearing market weakness, partly attributable to Twitter chatter about Asia media report of potential US-China trade talk impasse. So we saw a bit of a sell-off on the equity markets there. And we recently at 11:43, we saw a U.S. reportedly mulling sanctions on firms that are involved in Iran petrochemical trade as part of ramped up effort to end Iran's non-oil dollar trade. This includes any banks that do business with Iran. So again, little bit of action there on the back of that report. And now we are good to switch on over to our charts. Don't really see anything else on the agenda for today. Tentative U.S. Treasury currency report. We've got a bank holiday in Japan, and really tomorrow the stage is set for NFP, U.S. labor data coming out. We've also got ISM non-manufacturing PMI at 10 a.m. tomorrow. So expect some fireworks around that time. And let's switch on over to our charts here, get you guys updated on where the crude oil markets are and where the SPOs are trading relative to their pivots. And then we'll take a quick peek at some key levels on the range bar charts so that you guys have an idea of what to look for. And finally, we'll wrap it up with our TRADEPRO Performance Index, give you guys a quick insight into how our team did on today's session. And we'll go from there. So what you guys are seeing up in front of you is our quote boards. What I gotta do here is pull up my quote board here. So give me 1 second to do that. There we go. So there's a quote board. That's what you guys should be seeing at the moment in front of you. Let me pull up my handy dandy pen. And there we go. Pen is operational, and let's get at it. All right, first things first, crude oil futures. We've traded 670,000 contracts on the session already, higher than average. We've been seeing on average 500 to 550, more than average traded here. Lots of liquidity in the market today over the last 2 days, some great direction. You'll also notice the daily change percentage. We are down 3.76% from the previous day's close, guys. So a lot of volatility here in the crude oil market this morning. We're taking advantage of that with our head trader, our head crude oil trader, Mr. Boxy, and caught some nice moves in that market. SP 500, here's the big banger. You're seeing 1.02 million contracts traded so far today. What have we been saying, guys? This is almost double what we've been seeing on average. We've been seeing anywhere from 550 to around 650 recently, and anything really above 750,000 for this part of the session is quite big liquidity, and that's what we're seeing today. Also, daily change percentage in at minus 0.39%. Don't let that confuse you. That is based on the previous day's close. However, today's session, we have seen a nice spill off of the open, caught a little bit of a bid to start the morning, but ultimately got back below that open and haven't looked back since. So both of these markets are looking quite bearish today. We are seeing dollar catching a little bit of strength on today's session. So when the dollar catches strength, you'll usually see markets such as crude, such as SPOs, they'll find a little bit of weakness. As long as the dollar is ripping, you're going to see upside kind of capped on the SPOs and on oil. At least that's the way that it should work based on our correlations. So that's what we've got on the quote board. Let's drop down into our pivots. And what you will see on crude oil is that it is actually trading at its S4, which means it is quite sold. One can say that it is oversold at these levels. S4, generally S3 is considered, S3 is considered oversold. S4 would be even more oversold. But that's the thing with these markets, guys. Just because it's oversold doesn't mean it has to bounce. It can continue going lower. These are just guides, reference points at best. So with that being said, we are at S4 right now, finding a little bit of support right around that $61 mark here. And ultimately, I'm looking for a bit of a pop going into the end of the pit session. Pit session closed at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Like I said, almost 3% down, or just over 3.5% down from previous day's close. So I'm looking for a little bit of a bounce here. I'm thinking this thing is a little bit oversold. I mean, S4 is a pretty big number here as far as oversold levels. So I'm thinking we're probably going to pop back up at this point. Where am I looking? Probably into your S3, coming in at 61.74. Also got some other key levels on the charts here, a bit lower around the 61.60s. But ultimately, seeing it stay between S4 and S3 for the remainder of the session. Again, I could see us popping back into the S3. Get some of these late shorts that have been shortened into these lows here around the 61s, release their buy stops back into this S3 level, and then maybe rotate and continue lower from there. Ultimately, though, I think this is the majority of, I think the meat of the move, let's call it, has already happened, and that we'll likely see some consolidation lead into the pit close. And we'll look at some key levels there. So that's where the crude oil futures are trading at, well below their pivot. Normally this would be super bearish, but considering the fact that we're at S4, I think the downside might be done for the bit, and we might see a rotation higher. Like I said, 53 or S3 around the 64.75 level could be that first target. If we get back above that, could see us coming in maybe into those 62.40s, 62.35s. As far as the SPOs are concerned, opened the day and these SPOs were sitting below their pivot. I mentioned in the room that we'll be looking for SPOs to kind of hang between that pivot, between that S1 zone to start the session if they could not get back above those overnight highs around those 32 quarters. And so I'll go into what we're talking about in the room shortly, but we're saying as long as it remains below the pivot, your lead in trend is bearish, so we're looking for downside, and downside is what we got. Had a nice parabolic, I'd call this a parabolic move lower. This was 1, 2, 3 hours. So over 3 hours, we dropped down from 29.50s down almost into the 29.10s. So 40-point drop in 3 hours, pretty significant. So looking for that as a continuation move here. The fact that we couldn't get back above the pivot was showing me weakness, and I was looking for downside at S1 at the moment. This thing is looking pretty weak. It's finding some support here at the 2900 mark. So we might get a bit of a pullback on that front, but ultimately we could see potentially S2s below the 2900s if we do crack a little flush into S2, and below that I see a nice round number, your 2880s. That's also a pretty big level. So watch out for that going into the end of today's session. And that's it as far as the pivots are concerned. Let me open up my 10-tick charts on crude and SPUs and see what we're looking at here. So again, quite a bearish start to the day. There's our open right here. Nice sell-off off the open. And really the trades here were just selling rips. So every single rip really got sold into throughout the session. And that's kind of been the play. We're looking to play these level by level. Stephen was doing a great job in the room calling these. And a lot of the traders are doing quite well with crude today. Now we are seeing some support forming here in the 61, 61, 10 zone. You can see one rotation held into these 6140s, push that down lower. Tried a second leg, so we had kind of a 2-leg pullback here. Couldn't quite get the mustard to drive lower, and we did kind of pulling up all the stops. Anybody that got short really on the break of these lows right into this zone, you're seeing some big volume stepping in here, and that's got the sign for me that we got some shorts, late shorts. Anyone who missed this entire move and got short below these lows, you guys can bet they're buying their positions back as the market's pushing back up higher. What's our next level of resistance? Well, you've seen this level work once, couldn't quite get back up there the second time. So this looks like a pretty nice level at the moment, 6140s to 50s. You've also got your pit VWAP here, which has held once here before. So could see something where crude comes back up into these 6150s, trades back above that pit VWAP for a couple of rotations, similar to what you saw here. So breakout into that zone. You can see we've got some offers hanging out as well, some resting paper. If we break out into this zone, get back above the pit VWAP, and we find some resistance in the 6170s, start to form a tight consolidation. I could see us spilling back below that level, back lower, but ultimately for the upside, ultimately for the moment, I'm seeing a potential move back up into these range highs. Again, if we do get that breakout, look for that move into the 6170s. If we get the VWAP breakout, and let's say the VWAP starts crossing up like that, we could see a potential support on that VWAP for a trade to target the Globex VWAP. That will be counter trend. So if you're looking to do something like that, half size is what we would recommend on that front. So looking to short, as long as crude holds the bearish trend. Again, my line in the sand for this is going to be that pit VWAP. So if we get up in there, start to fail, could look to qualify lower. If we get up in there, breakout, I'll look for the rotation back down, hold it as support, and pop higher. So that's what we've got for crude. Let's jump on to SPUs. SPUs, again, we're looking for downside to start the morning session. I mentioned in the room that we had a very strong lead-in trend here that was bearish, and we had swing high, swing low here to start the morning. Mentioned to the room, this sell-off couldn't have happened on low. Rather, there's some serious supply to take this thing down from the 32s down into those low 20s, into the 19s, 10-point move. You got some players up there with some big money, big pockets. And so we were saying in the room this morning, if we got back above that VWAP and held it as support, that we'd look for a rotation up into those overnight highs. We also had inventory at the 35s to support that. We got that grind higher, and we were mentioning, you know, would it be surprising to see this thing break 1 or 2 ticks above that overnight high and then continue lower? Since our lead-in trend was bearish, that was basically Double top here, called that real time, looked to get short right around that zone, and some of the room caught that with us. Looking for that move back into the open. That was the initial target, with the ultimate target back down into those overnight lows. We are seeing these big bids right around the 29.18 for a good part of the morning. You can see really off the open, almost came into those bids. There was around 750 sitting in those 29.18s. And we were saying, that could be the potential target. If we fail here, you could see them press back down to that inventory. And that's exactly what we saw play out today. So inventory worked again today, works every day. Doesn't always work per trade, but gives you good ideas. That kept us on the long side up until this level, kept us short up until that level. And that's kind of where we closed out the room. So where we're sitting at the moment, clearly we've broken below previous lows, overnight low, had that rotation, came in, that rotation came out of there. Now we are finding support right at around number 2900. What am I watching for here? Well, seeing the support, looking for another rotation back up into this zone. Again, pretty big level of support here, or resistance at this point. You can see we've broken it, held it as resistance once, watching for another rotation into that zone. Could look to start qualifying something up there for continuation back down to press these lows. You've got your open here, you've got your Globex view app, your PIT view app, you got, what level is this? Your previous day close here, you've got your overnight low. So this is what I'm saying is SPOs are only down 0.3% or so from the previous day close. That's because the previous day close was down here, but from the highs of today's session up in those 32s, it is down almost 30 points. So bearish bias going in, looking to sell the rips. If it gets up to here, could look to potentially sell that again for a press down to the 2900s. And so that is the levels for the remainder of today's session. Again, not too much on the tape as far as economic news. We do have some FOMC members speaking today. We had FOMC member Clarita speak. We've got FOMC member William speaking at 1:45 p.m. These guys are medium impact events. We've got FOMC member Bowman speaking at 3 p.m. and then Bullard speaking at 7:45 p.m. Eastern. So not expecting too much volatility on the back of these FOMC member speeches, but just something to keep an eye out for. And that is pretty much it. So let me grab our TRADEPRO Performance Index, show you guys how the room did today. Throw that up here for you guys. So numbers were all right today. A couple of the challenges of the members in the room were just coming down to not being patient enough for rotations, not really sticking to the levels, not qualifying it properly, just kind of jumping in. And so that is kind of the result behind the 46% down. Ultimately, majority of the room was green again. So our green streak continues, 53.85%. Average so far for May is 61.65% green. Still a good number. Happy with how the team did, despite the down figure. These kinds of days, that's what it's for. But when we get nice volatility like this, it's very easy to, get back into the green and end up green for the session. So as of 11:30, I think it was around 11 a.m., this is what the figures look like, and I'm sure our traders are doing better in there. Myself personally, I'm in the up portion, and that's about it, guys. So this is what the figures are looking like. The reason we show you this is for anybody that's kind of on the sidelines and saying, a lot of people have testimonials on their page. A lot of people show this and that, but how do I know that that's real numbers? And this is basically our real numbers. These aren't our results. These are our members' results. This is them putting their live capital at risk in the markets, and these are the results that they're getting. So you guys are seeing overall great numbers. If I look back at April, 65% on average of the room was green. So TradePro is really pumping out some profitable traders. Communities building up really well, a lot of support in there, great environment, especially for really traders of any part of your journey, whether you're new, whether you've been doing this for a little bit, having trouble with consistency, or whether you're already experienced full-time trader, making consistent profits. TRADEPRO Academy day trading room is the best environment for you to, whether you're learning or whether you're experienced. It's a great place, a great community where we have like-minded individuals looking to achieve the same goal. Everyone's looking to make money. Everyone's looking to grow. And this is really a great, great environment. And these results are showing you guys, you are your environment. And 65% green on average for April, 61% so far for May, these first 2 days. I think that kind of speaks volumes. So that's going to be me. I'm just going to end that rant. That's going to be me for today. If you guys will be trading into the remainder of the session, make sure to follow those 3 rules. Stay patient, stay diligent, and stay disciplined. This is Mark from TRADEPRO Academy signing off again. Take care, good luck, and good trading. Ciao, guys.